Hi from Denver, Colorado. Today we're going to talk about Batiks by Collection. Trying to give you an idea of just a little bit of a walk inside the design studio in my design process. What I like to do. Everyone's different, obviously, but this gives you an idea of what I'm doing with Banyan Batiks. Now, why would I design batiks by collection? At the gorgeous batik wall, you see a huge, beautiful array of color. Well, you see a huge array of color too with the solids out there, right? The basics. So I'm trying to define batiks as something a little bit different. Yes, I love a good tonal batik. I love that texture in there. But what about the texture? What about taking that texture and doing maybe a little bit more contrast in it? Or taking that texture and adding some more color in there so that we have a little bit more movement in that. So when you do that, when you start to think about that, it's really fun because there's so many possibilities that you can design, right? What if I wanted to do something that's kind of holiday-ish or whatever? But if I did holiday, hi Judy and Leslie, thanks for joining. But what if I did like a holiday kind of design and we put it all in, mixed in with everything else? You wouldn't know it was holiday, right? And maybe if you're cutting it up into small pieces, that's fine. You don't really see the snowflake in there or something like that. But if you want to focus on holiday and you want to do a holiday quilt, or maybe you want to do a quilt with bikes on it, right on too. You want to see the additional prints that go along with the main print. Kathy and Kathy have joined us. Thanks for joining, guys. So I like to design by collection because it gives a focus. The end user, which is me too, and you, we're quilters, right? And we like to make, maybe we have a theme to our project, or maybe it's only by color. Maybe it's a whole bunch of fat quarters and we're putting it together. And it's maybe a colored theme. Even in that colored theme, even if you're grabbing a whole bunch of batiks in to go together, you want to change your scale, right? You want maybe something that's larger and has more color in it, more multi. You want something that's tonal, something that's textured. So all of that goes together actually in a collection. So I don't have to do novelty as a collection like Ride On, which is all about bikes, or Holiday, but I can do something that's the theme of the collection. Now, I kind of have an idea in my head when I'm coming up with a collection. Obviously, bikes are pretty easy. It's a theme, it's a novelty, or it's a conversational. Um, but when I'm coming up with maybe a technique or something like that, I have an idea of where I'm headed, but I don't like to name it, or I don't like to follow that theme all the way there, because a lot of times with design, we'll have a design board and we'll say, okay, this is my theme. This is my collection of batiks. And maybe we've named it a certain thing and we won't veer off of it, even if the collection is dictating that you need to. For instance, if you're designing something that has beautiful um, sugar crystals is coming to mind, my sugar crystals collection. And they're beautiful designs. There's a grid on it, there's a floral on it. But it originally, it really wasn't that focus, and we named it sugar crystals because it reminded us actually of my those homemade cookies, the icing that is kind of has a cooler feel to it, or a cooler palette, and then the warm cookies as another palette. Okay, so let me show you that. Paul and Patricia, thanks for joining. Okay, so sugar crystals, and this is hitting stores, I think, yeah, ooh, right now. Okay, so ask your stores if they have it. But you can see here, sugar crystals, okay, has two different colorways here, right? Okay, we've got our icing here, and then we've got the warm cookies that just came out of the oven there, okay? So it was kind of the design that started it all was the double chop print that is in this one right there. Okay. So achieving that, and what would happen with that, that's like those little balls, the little crystal balls that you put on the cookies. But so that started it, but it didn't really, we didn't play that much in the geometric. The geometric to me was, the trays that you put the cookies on to cool them after they're out of the oven. Okay, I always love to have a geometric in a collection. So this collection really is married together by color and a bit of the texture that is going on in there. All right. You can do it, like I said, by theme. But what I do is I keep the chop only in that collection. That's another thing. If I'm designing by collection, then I can keep that chop only in that collection. You won't see it maybe in watercolor floral, which is another one of my collections. You won't see it in street art, which is another collection. You'll only see it in that one collection in a cohesive colorway that goes with the collection. Now, I say a cohesive colorway that goes with the collection. I do colorways, okay? So I'll split them into headers. We call these headers. That these are things that the sales reps are showing to the quilt shops, okay? And the quilt shop has to see all of these by a lot of different companies and figure out, okay, which ones will work for my market? Which ones will work in my store? What projects do I have in mind that could work for that? And what's an easier way to do that? Show it by collection, because then they know, you know what, I can put this into Turning 20. I can put this into Lucky Stars quilt or something like that, and know that it can be successful. You've got to think about your texture in there. You got to think about your color contrast. You got to think about your lights, your darks, your mediums, all the different scales. What about the multis? Do you have multis in there? Here's a multi with a white on top, and then this one here has a multi in the motif. So you've got to start to think about how many different things that you need within each collection. But you can see this is having a hard time folding, right? Sorry. Okay. But you can see I've got two colorways here. And now there was one question, how do I choose colorways for collections? And that's always interesting. It's always hard because for me, I like to design a collection and it all goes together. And I'm a scrappy girl. I love putting a ton of fabrics in my quilts. I like to use, whatever I can grab out of that grab bag. But a lot of times if quilt stores are kitting it up, or you're looking at a quilt or a sample that's up on the wall, you want to know the exact fabrics that are in it, right? So we're trying again to make that easier to determine. It's not some random batik. It's part of, say, the street art collection. Now, street art collection is a collection that's in stores now, and it's actually inspired by a festival in Denver that in the Rhino district in street art. It's how many different textures you see. Like you see different textures on the pavement. You see and maybe the spray art or the spray paint effect. This one right here is phenomenal for that. Maybe you see an overview of buildings and kind of incorporate cars in there, and it has that kind of effect. This is kind of inspired by a terrazzo floor, all of that kind of thing. So that helps me kind of bring it around and focus. Okay, what kind of motifs do I want to put in there? What kind of techniques do I want to put in the street art collection that was inspired by, okay, the Rhino district? Now, we have a few different colorways. How did I determine the colorways? This one here is a little bit warmer, right? We called it fire starter. Okay, it's a little bit warmer. And generally, I'll go off of a main print or a main design. Like this, to me, this has a lot of the multis in it. So maybe it's my main design, or maybe this is my main. And then you pull colors from it, right? I don't like when a quilt, you pull all the colors from the border fabric, but they don't match together in a quilt. That drives me nuts. So I want to make sure that the colorway, all of it goes together. Or if you picked out randomly 2 or 3 of it in a colorway, it does work really well together. Because you know what? Quilt stores, they can't buy every single batik I come out with. They would love it. I know they would love it because they love my batiks, right? But If they want to do a kind of capsule collection of the street art collection, this is an easy way for them to do that. Maybe they choose 3 or 4 within this colorway. Maybe then they choose 3 or 4, or maybe they say, you know what, this entire header works for a project that I have. Or maybe they like this particular colorway. It depends. And what they're looking at is, okay, what's missing in the batiks that I have? What do I already have on the shelves? And how can this enhance what I'm trying to showcase to my customer, you, the quilter? Okay. And here's another one of the spray paint kind of effect. Okay. So that one is street art collection. Now, the street art, we started with the idea of, when I went and got inspired by all the artists in the Rhino District, that was my focus, right? That was my collection. So, in a way, this is kind of a novelty collection. Anything to do with street art, whether it be the chalk art, right? The chalk art that you see. Sometimes there's one in Pasadena. Walt Disney World actually has one every November. So it's that kind of thing. What textures are you seeing as well? Okay. Another one, another collection that we're talking about right now is coloring book. Okay. Coloring book, we bring around a couple times. Wow. Hey, Deb, Natasha, and Christine, thanks for joining today. Coloring book we come out with a couple times a year, and it's not the same one, but it's the same concept. How about that? So coloring book, this looks like a box of crayons, right? So these are kind of your primary. Now I went with my jumping off point. Here's my focus. Here's my focus fabric. And it's got all those colors in it. And that's what's great about Batiks, because we love our multis. I can do a multi in the background. I can do a multi in the motif. And then I did tonals to go with it. But you have to look really at these and see the different textures that are in there. It's important to have that, different motifs and different textures. Again, designing for coloring book, only the chops that I used in coloring book, they're only going to be shown in coloring book. Okay. Here's the other colorway. And it's a little bit cooler, right? So the main design has cooler applications of color. So that was easy for us to determine, okay, here's 2 colorways. Can you mix the 2 colorways? Do we do it all the time in quilts? Yes. Okay. So when you're shopping at stores, do you make up your own collection of batiks? Yeah, you do. When you have a stash, you have your own collection, right? That's all I'm doing. I'm just designing by collection, because that's how I keep my stuff together, my stash of batiks. Do you keep your batiks by color, or do you keep them all, grouped together, or do you play with them and mix and match them? So mixing and matching, of course, the different colorways works really well. I mean, sometimes like this collection here, it's a sneak peek, and you got to check this out. Okay. This video we've put up, and it's the hand painted flower power, and it's not getting to stores until next June. So make sure, if you have a favorite local quilt shop, you ask them if they've ordered flower power. We had a huge response with our stores, but look how I've just put it on 2 different palettes, warm and cool. Okay. And then I put some of the shadows in between, because am I going to mix them up? Can I mix them up in one quilt? Yeah. I did it with Terry Atkinson's slideshow pattern. Love it. Okay. Another thing with collections is I can bring in guest designers then, right? I can have them design a collection that they would use in their projects. Linda Hahn is one. She did Carnival, and this one is in stores right now. You guys check out this stripe and see if your store has it. Kind of like that fruit gum, okay, the fruit stripe gum, right? But she's got amazing color and saturation. Okay, that's another thing we got to think about. Okay, what about the color saturation? We did a lot of multis in hers, but all of her designs and all of her colorways stay within her collection and do not go to another collection. So then I can focus it, right? It's not a novelty collection like Ride On or a holiday, but it's focused on that guest designer and what's good for that guest designer. Linda likes to use small pieces, and she cuts them up into small pieces. So she needs multis that have color that can be cut up, and she can see all of that color, okay, in her small pieces. Then we've separated it. You can see different colorways, right? And it's really based on how this palette works together. Maybe a couple of the colorways work together better than a couple more, but it allows you to mix and match. And like I said, smaller collections. Cranberry Chutney is another guest designer, Madison Cottage Designs, and she has some wonderful patterns. All of her colorways really work together in like a fat quarter quilt, and she's known for those. All right. She has some wonderful fat quarter quilts that all of these work a fantastic way. And you can go to the Banyan Batiks website and they'll have these to show you. Let me just go with, hey Scott, thanks for joining. I just want to go to the bandana collection, and we're showcasing this to stores right now. It's a novelty collection, right? But how do I separate it into colorways? Okay, you can see this one, it's more reds and blues, and we have a little bit of black, which is almost like fireworks, right? In the night sky. And this has a little bit more of the gray in there. I'm able to put the different grays in here with the red. Okay, so separating it into colorway. Do they marry really well? Absolutely, they marry wonderfully. Okay, but this way I'm able to focus it on motifs that work really well into, if I think of patriotic or Americana or kind of a bandana style collection, I can focus then, just like you would in a quilt project. So that's why I design by collection. Not all designs or all batiks are designed by collection. I Everyone's got their own way of doing it, obviously. But I think I covered pretty well that question, why I do. Cranberry chutney project ideas. You guys said table runner or a beach bag. I think that'd be a wonderful project. So make sure you get to your quilt shop and ask them if they have the cranberry chutney collection. Colors, how are they mixed and selected? We'll go into some more, some other Facebook Lives. We'll do some more with color. I think you guys really are interested in that. And just one other question we had, does the ink absorb into the backside, or do you have to do the back as well as the front? And that's the application of the wax. The color is applied first, then the wax holds the color. And then, so you don't have to redo the backside, no. But there is a front and a back on the batik, and we can go into that too on another one. I can tell you why maybe the back side's a little bit different on some of my batiks, and why I chose to do it that way. Okay. Anyway, if you've commented, we'll put your name in for a drawing so you can win some Banyan batiks. All right. So thanks for joining me, everybody, and I hope to see you soon.